right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Wilderness PT Cast. I've ran through probably many names on these first few episodes. Anyway, tonight's episode is going to be about rucking. It's been a thing that's come up in the last few events with the Hunt Lift Eat guys, and then with someone that I met at this last event out in Pennsylvania. Rucking seems to be getting a lot of attention and a lot of emphasis placed on it. However, it is not something that is an absolute necessity. Now, it's a pretty hot take in the Western community, Western hunting community, because it looks pretty cool on Instagram to be walking around with a heavy pack and training with weight in your backpack, or a few of the new things that have come out as far as being able to put weight on your back and trying to simulate a pack out as best as you can. It has its place. I'm not saying to not do it at all. However, I don't think it needs to be done year round. It definitely does not need to be done after the season, postseason. It is something that can be done preseason, and I think later on into someone's preseason. There's quite a bit of research in the military because of the fact that they do a lot of heavy pack training, and a lot of what they do, they have a lot of armor and gear on. So the rule of thumb, or the thought for them for a while, was to train with that weight, to become used to that weight. And after looking into the research through the NSCA and through some PT stuff, it's looking like you can improve your performance without actually having to put a heavy backpack on in order to do so. Training injuries in the military are the leading cause for lack of mission readiness, meaning soldiers and members of the military become unable to participate in missions due to injuries related to training. Now, training is supposed to be something where you are preventing injury. Injury during training should not really be happening, because the point of training is to prevent injuries while you're out in the field doing what you are loving to do, whether that's backpack hunting or base camp hunting or day hunting, or for the military's purpose, what you're training to prevent injury while you're out in the field working. So with that, spine injury accounts for 25% of those injuries leading to lack of mission readiness. And of that 25%, 75% of those were related to the lumbar spine, so the low back specifically. So a very high rate of low back injury leading to the lack of mission readiness, which raises a bit of an eyebrow because of the fact that, again, the training is supposed to prevent this stuff from happening. So if rucking is causing that, why are we having people do that? Back injury in this particular study, back injury was the second most reported injury during load carrying training, second to only foot blisters. Again, it's a very high rate of injury for something that's supposed to be preventing injury while they're out in the field doing their mission. This particular study looked at some injury prevention exercises, where the deadlift, modified deadlift with a dumbbell or a kettlebell, because that allows the weight to be more under the participant's center of mass, whereas a barbell deadlift, the weight is a little more forward on someone because they can't get the barbell past their shins. They didn't look at the hex bar deadlift, but I would imagine the hex bar deadlift is going to be similar to that of the kettlebell and the dumbbell, due to the fact that you're able to get that bar back a little bit, and the bar is more centered with the hips and the spine versus being out in front. Now, it's not saying that barbell deadlifts are bad. Barbell deadlifts are excellent. But in this study, they looked at the modified deadlift with a dumbbell and a kettlebell. Verts hypers. So you're on a back extension machine and you're raising up and down. Payloft press. So that's where you're in a slightly squatted position with your butt back, and you're just pressing a band forward. Say the band's over here for those of you watching on YouTube. The band is, say, pulling me to my left. So you start here with the band and you're pressing out, pressing back in. So the band is trying to rotate me this way, but you're preventing that by keeping your chest, your belly button, and your hips pointed straight ahead while pressing straight out and straight back. And then you would turn around and do the same thing and push out and pull back with that band trying to rotate this way, but you're not allowing that to happen. It's very good for the obliques. It's very good for the rotators of the spine itself, the small little guys of the spine. Planks were also a very good an exercise that was included in this injury prevention program. I am very pro plank, side planks especially, because that is excellent in addressing the obliques and addressing the gluteus medius, which plays a very important role in the pelvic stability with walking, with hopping over a creek. Suitcase carries. So what that is, it's a farmer's carry, but just in one hand. With that, you are able to, for those looking on YouTube, you're able to put your other arm, say it's in my right hand, you're able to put that other arm on out to the side as a counterweight, but you're not allowed to rotate or dip your shoulder side to side. The only thing that can really counterweight you is the arm out to the side. Again, that is excellent in terms of strengthening that glute med as well as the obliques and the rest of the abdominal muscles, because now you're starting to isolate side to side, so you don't have the counterbalance of weight in one hand, whereas the musculature, your core musculature, has to provide that counterbalance. Bridges. So another exercise that this study mentioned was skater steps and bridges. So the skater step or the monster walk, I call them skaters because of the motion that I have people do with their feet. So say you're in a athletic stance, feet are side by side. You bring one foot in towards the other one. You clank. You don't have to clank the feet together, but I tell people to clank their feet together, and then you bring it back out, and then you bring that front foot back towards the opposite foot. You clank arches together, and then you bring it back out. So you're drawing a half circle or half moon with the foot, and I have people go backwards because, again, the glutes extend the hip. That glute med helps extend that hip. So if you are going forward, you work more the hip flexors, which isn't bad. But if you're trying to isolate the glutes, going backward is going to help isolate that glute a little bit more. And then bridges, that's an excellent motion. You can do weighted bridges. Again, with this, you're getting a nice hip hinging motion. It's a very safe motion. If you're doing bridges on the floor, you can go to one leg and isolate side to side. That's an excellent option. Another thing with the bridge is you can put your shoulders up on a bench if you're at a gym. You can put your shoulders up on a couch if you're at home. You should add weight to your hips, whether it's a bag of salt if you're at home, a bag of sand. If you're at the gym, you can put a barbell or a plate across your hips. You can put a dumbbell across your hips, but you should add some external resistance to your hips in order to continue to progress that. And the big thing with the bridges and any of the motions, maintaining a neutral spine, a neutral pelvis. So you don't want to stick your butt out like you're getting ready to twerk. You need to tuck, and you don't want to tuck your hips so far underneath you that it looks like you have a rounded back, a rounded low back. You want to draw your belly button in toward your spine gently, and you should feel your hips stick underneath you just a little bit, to the point where I usually tell people you're trying to keep a bucket of water level. You don't want to tilt your hips forward so that way the bucket of water spills forward, and you don't want to tilt your hips back so far that the bucket of water spills backward. You want to find that happy medium in between the two, so that way that bucket of water stays level and no water is going to spill out while you're doing the exercise. In this particular study, the rep scheme went from high rep scheme, so reps, I believe, was 12 to 15 or 12 to 20, to a low rep scheme. And as they drop down in reps, they increase in weight. I talked about that in an earlier podcast in resistance training about your weight needing to match your rep scheme. If your goal is 5 sets of 5, you need to be fatigued on that 5th set at that 5th rep. If you can crank out 10 reps on that last set of 5, that weight is too light. Anytime that you're able to crank out more than 2 reps on that last set, you need to increase the weight because you're not stimulating the type 2 muscle fibers like you were intending to stimulate with power and strength training. If you get into that higher rep, but your intent is to be in that lower rep scheme, you're still training in that hypertrophy zone versus the hypertrophy or the endurance zone versus the strength and power zone as far as the rep schemes go. The rucking time was between 48 and 72 hours between rucks. So they would ruck, say, on a Monday, and then Wednesday would be the soonest that they would ruck. Otherwise, it'd be maybe Thursday. There's other research that I have found that there was benefit in rucking once every other week. So they still improved with their rucking at rucking once every other week. And to me, that's a good option. If someone wants to feel like they need to get used to a heavier pack, then you can ruck for once a week for 6 weeks up to your hunt. I would say you don't need to ruck more than once a week. 6 weeks is adequate time to elicit adaptation and get ready to and get your body used to having a heavier pack on. Research has shown that heavy ruck training, so ruck training 30% of your body weight and up, has shown to improve your ability to handle heavier loads and lighter loads, whereas ruck training less than 30% of your body weight only improves ruck or loads that are less than 30%. So you don't get that carryover effect of the heavier loads. So if you're going to choose one, I would suggest choosing more than 30% of your body weight. As far as dosing, I can't dose on a podcast because that's very individualized. Some people have them wear their backpack while they're doing the dishes and cooking dinner at night just because of time's sake. People, they can go out and go for a half an hour walk, but I would say start small. And as far as time duration, and just see how your body responds to that. If you're doing it 6 weeks beforehand, you have plenty of time, plenty of rucking sessions to get used to or to figure out what your body is going to do as far as response to the load. So it's always easy to start small and ramp up versus starting way too high and having to back off because you bit off more than you can chew and now your body's responding in a negative way. Yeah, well, let's keep this one short and sweet. So I've got nothing else for you. There's definitely more on rucking to come. I think it's something that needs to be talked about more, and the benefits of not rucking so early. There is benefit to rucking, but not rucking so early on in the preseason to allow time for your resistance training routine and your cardio training to adequately adapt and be ready to start ruck training. And again, research is showing that having a properly dosed resistance training routine and a properly dosed cardio training routine is adequate in getting you ready to handle heavy loads in the backcountry after a successful hunt. Anyway, I'm going to hop off the horn here. I hope you guys have a great night and tune in for another episode.